Hello, friends. Welcome to Logistics of Logistics podcast. My name is Joe Lynch. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today's topic is how humanoid robots are shaping the future of logistics with my friend Parker Conroy. How's it going, Parker?
Going really well. Good afternoon, Joe. I appreciate you and time of your listeners to get a chance to talk to you. So my name is Parker Conroy. I am the head of product here at Apptronik, and we are a humanoid robotics company. So really excited to talk to you guys about how the innovations we're doing, moving the form factor of robots from maybe what your audience has seen in more traditional language into that bipedal form factor. So excited to talk to you about it.
So you said bipedal. What does bipedal mean?
So bipedal are two legs. When we talk about humanoid robots, and we could spend the whole hour talking about what is a humanoid. Humanoid is something in the human form. So 2 arms, 2 legs, torso, and a head is the way that we look at it. Although you see a lot of different modularities out there, like wheeled bases, which we're also very interested in, and even expansions onto single arm to double arm use cases where you have robots that are stationary and yet can take advantages of a lot of the embodied AI that we're seeing in humanoids today.
Yep. I haven't judged it by exactly, but I'm guessing hundreds of hours over the last few years watching videos of robots do stuff. And the bipedal, the ones that look like humans, are the ones that interest me the most. If somebody said, you want to watch this robot, it puts a screw in to this body side of a truck, I'd be like, nope, I've seen that enough times. I don't need to see that type of automation. And even a robot going back and forth on wheels, it's interesting once, twice, but you lose interest. But a bipedal robot with a head and arms, and if it has a face, I'm all in.
Apollo, our robot, has a face. It is that we see the head as the embodiment of the character of the robot we're building. But I'll say that the human form is so much more about being able to apply the robot in brownfield environments. We build our environments for the people that work in them. And so it's an obvious shortcut to say, why don't we build robots in that same form so they're compatible with the environments, the tools, all of the way these places are built today?
Yeah, I'm very interested in talking more about this. But first, who are your customers and what problem are you solving for them?
Yeah, Joe, we're really focused on the labor crisis that's occurring out there across a variety of industries. Certainly, your 3PLs, your logistics providers are experiencing this today, but we're actually seeing it across a large number of industries. We're starting our work in light industrial, manufacturing, and warehousing spaces, but we actually see this technology being applicable all the way into more public-facing environments, like retail environments and more commercial duty environments, towards working in hospitals and being able to help with intralogistics in those environments. And in the future, also the home. We think that this technology, the seed of it is being started in industry, but it's something that's going to impact society and anywhere work is being done.
So I definitely know I'm the last of the baby boomers. So if you look at the baby boomers, we are slowly leaving the field, reluctantly in some cases. And the baby boomers had kids, but the baby boomers' kids didn't have as many kids. And so what we're seeing is we do have a labor, and this is not just in the United States, that my audience is across the world. Everywhere is experiencing this challenge with fewer children. And by the way, that means that as we have fewer children, the children can be a little pickier about the work they do. And if I'm a young person, or by the way, if you and I were talking to a young person right now and they said, I'm thinking of taking a job in the warehousing business, you're like, go to a company that has cool tech. They aren't going to go to companies that don't have good tech. But getting back to it, the technology in general, if I can't get people to go to those jobs, I'm going to need robots. I'm going to need something to be in fill that gap because the need's still there. This population's still growing.
Population is still growing, the economy is still growing, and even compared to the days of past, the economy is much more dynamic now than it's ever been. Consumers are out there expecting mass customization. They want things delivered the next day after they've clicked a button on their phone. So actually, it's getting harder to keep up with the consumer. And so the person who's sourcing that, the warehouse, the manufacturer, all of this has to be that much more flexible. But to speak to your question about where this labor crisis is pointed, I've had the benefit through installing mobile robots and other sorts of traditional industrial equipment of being able to see people who one day were pushing carts, who the next day were managing fleets of mobile robots.
Oh, I
And
like it.
when I talk about people entering the workforce today, I think you're right on the money. You want to go into a place now where, yeah, you might be doing manual labor to begin with, but you see a path towards where you can multiply your impact by tens or 100s. And Apptronik, our mission here is robots for humans. It is to put a tool into the environment that allows people to do the jobs that they are best suited for. And those are more creative thinking jobs. Those are jobs that require a different level of capability than just lift a heavy thing.
Right. Humans are built to sit and scroll through social media. So that's what we should be doing.
I
Anyway,
hope you get outside every once in a while, but
yeah, we hike. We talk about hiking a lot.
yeah, if you're like me, as you've gotten older in your career, you've recognized that if you knew from the beginning you'd be staring at a screen your whole life, you might have spent more
Oh my
time
God.
outside.
Parker, that's a great point. I heard Joe Rogan say this. Joe Rogan said, if we were ever going to move everything to the internet, like, yeah, so everything in the world becomes digital, the first step is all of us just sitting with a digital device, talking to it, entering all of our information into it 24/7. I was like, that's a good point. Maybe these things are training us. That's another topic, another day.
Yeah, another topic, but I am interested in touching on that because I think that some of the foundational technology that's made humanoids possible, that has come to be in the last, let's say, 5 to 10 years, is the same technology that makes it easier to work with computers in general. And so all the AI tools we have, the way you program our robot is by training it by doing the actual task. If you want to move things from this bin to another bin, you put on a headset, you put on gloves, and you go through the motion and you teach the robot. If you go back 7 years, how do you teach a robot? You've got your PLC, you've got your tool points, you're teaching point A, you're teaching point B, you're smoothing out all these things. You need an expert, right? You need a system integrator or a robotics engineer.
Yeah, and the very basic stuff was all they could do.
And so we're trying to lower the skills floor there so that more people can engage with this sort of technology.
Yep. Parker, we'll come back to all that. But first, tell us a little bit about you. Where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to school? Some career highlights before you joined the juggernaut that is Apptronik.
Yeah, of course. Born and raised in Utah, Salt Lake City, Utah. And I'll say that I was a tinkerer as a child, took apart more things than I put back together. That was certainly true. But so I went to school, was mechanical engineer, worked in a little bit of a machine shop when I was an undergrad, and that really flavored my interests in the industrial space. Went to grad school focusing on robotics and then have bounced around a little bit. So I went from Utah to the East Coast where I worked for a company called Adept Technologies, a foundational American robotics firm, and then did a little bit of work for Omron, actually for quite a few years, working on bringing robotics into their input, output, logic, safety sort of environment, which really gave me a taste for how system integrators build work cells for big customers in automotive and consumer packaging and things like that. Spent a brief period of time working at Verizon, focusing on 5G networks for robotics. That was a lot of fun, gave me a great perspective of where kind of the back end of all this compute lives. And for the last little more than a year and a half, I've been at Apptronik, really enjoying what I see as the culmination of a lot of technologies coming together. The autonomous mobile robot, plus the robot arm, plus the computer vision, plus the human robot interfaces, all packaged in one, hopefully very friendly and easy to work with package.
Yep. So you obviously had lots of options in your career. Why did you choose Apptronik? What was so special about the company that made you want to go?
Oh man, so many things. I would say I resonate really strongly with the the robots for humans message. I've always been interested in, and I'm a product manager, right? That's what my team focuses on, is smoothing the path from the technology and engineering side with the customer and how the end user is going to use the product. And so I saw incredible inroads in mobile robots, autonomous mobile robots or AMRs, where we were now starting to be able to hand off more of this work to the robot itself, as opposed to drawing waypoints and putting lines in the ground of where your robot goes. Now you just put point A, point B, and it figures it out. And I saw there that automation, or even maybe better put, autonomy, was starting to get more accessible. And that was starting to have a big influence on industry. And so when I thought about where this was going, and I really said to myself, like, what am I going to be happy I focused on if I look back 10 years from now? And it was humanoids. I was also very interested in just the challenge of putting this whole thing together and connecting a lot of the customer base who I was used to talking with in more traditional robots and thinking about where robots are going to go next societally. There were probably 15 things that made me excited to come here. We're also based out of Austin, Texas, which I've enjoyed living here for the last year and a half, despite we have some very intense summers, which I am still not used to.
I'm a little too pale to be an Austin guy, but I'm fascinated with the culture that has moved down there. And I was supposed to go to a conference there and I missed it. I can't get to all the damn conferences, but I wanted to go down because I wanted to go to Austin. But yeah, you mentioned what you wanted to focus on and 10 years later, what we reflect on. And one of the things that I always think about is this journey that we're all on when it comes to technology. So right now, when I think about the technologies that I use, I go on my phone. 10 years ago, did my phone do what it does now? Of course not. But there was a time when having a phone was like a big deal, right? I remember my dad getting a mobile phone. It was hardly mobile. It was in his car and didn't do anything, obviously. And then when we started getting apps, everything was clunky. Everything was, hey, you can do this with the technology. And you're like, yeah, if you're a programmer, you can. So there was all of these things that was like the techies were leading it, but they were the only ones who could do it. And I think of my stupid cable box. I always say the cable box is one of those ridiculous things that started off with the engineers said, we'll make a box for ourselves and then we'll give it to consumers. And they won't know what to do with it, but this is all about us. And I think what we've seen is all the consumer technology is all bent around us. And I say this every once in a while on my podcast. We have consumer grade technology in our life, and now we expect consumer grade technology at work, meaning it is easy to use, it's intuitive. I don't have to get trained for it. If somebody said to you, hey, I got to go buy something on Amazon, or I got to go take the Amazon training, it's a 4-hour course. You'd be like, Amazon would not be Amazon if it took a class to learn it. And I feel like that's the same with Uber or Lyft or buying stuff from the store, getting a sub delivered by sub. If it was like, oh, did you take the Subway training yet? No, it's just you go on. It's easy. It's intuitive. They know who I am. I think we need the same thing when it comes to my robots. My robot needs to get here and say, hey, Joe, what do you need to do? What do you want me to do?
What do you want to do today?
I won't say anything gross to the robot. I'm not like that. There's other creeps who do that.
We have a big focus in our organization on just human robot interaction. And that's meant coming from human computer interaction is where that field's born out of. But I have to say that there's a couple modalities of input, right? If you have a warehouse management system and you want to command the robot, you can of course do that through our fleet manager interface. But we're also deeply invested in what is the persona of the robot when it interacts with staff or managers who might be telling it what to do. And yeah, if you have to go get out your ladder logic PLC programming book, that's not the way that this is going to work in the future. And we think a lot about how you're going to interact with the robot. And the huge improvements in generative AI are what's smoothing this out, both in our personal lives in terms of being able to ask ChatGPT what's going on this weekend as compared to, hey, what's going on in the factory. Generative AI is one of the elements here that makes these interfaces so fluid. And that's getting better and better by the day. We're really proud to be working with the Google DeepMind team on the embodied AI that is in Apollo. And a lot of the motions, actions, embedded reasoning that it's able to do comes from our partnership there. And we think that they're leaders in the space, and we're really excited to be working with them because you're right. It's the same stuff that touches the consumer side that industry's pulling for. We just know it usually takes 5 years to get it to the industrial guys before it actually hits out in the consumer field.
Yep. I just tell you a quick story, and I think it illustrates. I'm an automotive guy originally. I worked in product development and engineering for 20 plus years. And I recently took my car to the Ford dealership and I said, when I get on the expressway, it's doing this thing where it feels like there's a strut or something, a shock, something's off. And the lady goes, "Oh, let me look here." And she goes, "Oh, yeah, it's lane assist is on. You turned lane assist on." I go, "What?" She goes, "The lane assist tells you when outside the lane." I go, "Oh, it only happens when I drive on the expressway that's under construction, so I'm going over the regular lanes." And she goes, "We get about a dozen a week." I go, "Oh," and I talked to my brother-in-law, Ford guy. I drive a Ford, and I said to him, this always happens with engineering. We outsmart ourselves. We create solutions that no one particularly, by the way, I'm not against lane assist. I'm sure they did some research and somebody said, yes, it's a good thing. But it should have popped up. The message should have popped up, lane assist on. Instead, I got a ridiculous icon. I couldn't find out what it meant. And I think this is sometimes the challenge with the technologists saying, we can do this. But there's always the question, should you? And I think that's the job of Parker, is to say, I'm the one in between the engineers and the humans, saying, do you actually want this? What does this need to do for the humans?
When you look at a more traditional robot arm or something and you want to go program it and you get into the configuration, you're looking at 70, 100, 200, 500 parameters or something. That's not usable, right? If you want to build robots, people do not do. Engineers, which are a special brand of people, can work their way through all of that configuration, right? But if you want to bring this sort of technology to the masses, you can't have it be like that. You have to be able to configure it on the fly. You have to be able to have it learn from its environment, get better based upon the results that it creates. So it's really just a sea change for the automation. That's not to say that there aren't experts. And we are thinking about those experts in our interfaces, but we want to be able to have anybody interact with the robot and it be pleasant and exciting to work with the robot, but be able to see it as a trustworthy device, which, back to your lane assist story, if you don't know why something is doing something, that's really frustrating. So you have to have disclosure, and it's not only just a robot, it's a solution of everything around it. So our dashboards, our interfaces, all of those are built to bubble up, hey, this weird thing happened, or we're not expecting this, or we need to get retrained, things like that.
Yep. So let's get back to the problem. So let's just say I own some warehouses. Let's just say I'm nationwide, and across all my locations, I notice a problem. I have a high turnover rate of my people. We're struggling to hire people who want this job, or we're getting the wrong people in the job. But then in addition, some of the jobs are very difficult. I'm asking them to do stuff that is hard. And they say, hey, nobody wants a job where you walk around and lift heavy things all day. That sounds like a good workout for a week, but a good workout turns into an injury after a month. And we're going to lose people. And by the way, there's the shortage. There are good jobs out there if you want to work, or easier jobs to do than lifting heavy things and walking 5 miles a day. But here's my problem. I can't hire these people. I would love to have robots. That sounds like the perfect solution. My robots will never mouth off to me. They won't quit with no notice. But aren't they like crazy expensive? How do I go about getting a robot that's not going to, it seems like sci-fi futuristic. I don't have $1 million to spend on a robot. So how are you guys bridging that gap?
Yeah, we don't expect you to have $1 million. And to immerse ourselves in, and I've done some work in warehouse in the past before being in this role. And I think it's something like, is it 80% of warehouses don't have any automation today? Something like that.
I don't have that exact number, but I do know this. About 50% of warehouses have one location. Warehousing companies have one location. I think that's changing over time because I think the need is for there to be multiple locations to support same day, next day, and all the consumer demands that we have.
Yeah. So I think that you need to make a robot that's compatible with those environments that don't have a lot of that automation, because you're not interacting with these more high-end computer systems that are in these systems or other robots. But to get back to your question, I think there's, first of all, more formally, there's a couple ways we're interested in going to market, and robot as a service is one of those.
Oh, I like it.
What that enables us to do is bring the equipment into the environment, write an SLA against what it's supposed to do, and then humanoids are a quickly changing technology. you're not going to have the same humanoid now that you're going to have 10 years from now. And so we take some of that burden of the speed of technology on our organization, and we deliver a robot to you that does the job. And so we will work in more of a contract fashion where the end user doesn't have to put out a bunch of cash to begin with. If you are in a low cost of capital environment, though, we're also very happy to work on that side, more CapEx plus the services that come with it. So we want to make it an easy entry point for users into the space so that they can start to see the inroads here, and we can start to take those smaller warehouses and start to add some automation there without making them automate everything all at the same time.
So is there a positive ROI when you show up and say, hey, I know you're short 5 heads, we can get a robot as a service, we can get that in here, and this is going to be cost effective, this is going to make sense financially?
I've never had much success bringing anything to an end user that didn't create an ROI.
No, the reason I ask is because I know that the leaders of the space are spending on stuff that they go, someday this will be the answer. But that is not what most of us have.
So we will deliver our solution that is price competitive to where the labor
Oh,
market
that's
is.
fantastic.
Absolutely. So at a discount to what we're seeing there. But I had to say, I see it more as improving the low watermark of labor in a facility than necessarily like trading jobs that are people for robots. We've seen the era of time of technology where there's not a lot of switchboard operators around, and yet everybody's got a telephone in their pocket. And so as we bring new technology into the space, we expect that's an accelerant for the people that are working there. As you mentioned, you don't want to be lifting a heavy box all day, every day if you can get away with it. I think something like a third of injuries are overuse injuries in these environments. And so the robot is there to take that burden of the heavy labor, which then enables those people to do jobs that are better suited for creative minds. Our goal is to be able to raise the watermark. And I think you can see this in another way, which we talked to some of our customers about, which is you've got extra shifts that may not be staffed. What are people doing overnight?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Instead of bringing in people in the morning and cleaning up your supermarket that got all messy the day before, why not overnight? Robots can go through and they can put things back. They can clean it up, have the facility. So it's a way where that when the bulk of your staff comes in, it's a better environment. So it's not just about switching jobs from one to another and automating the job. I don't like to think about it that way. I like to think about it as where are those opportunities where you do not have the labor doing something that the robot could do, that kind of dull, dirty, dangerous work, back to stick to those traditional ideas.
So I think, please, I normally stay on the shallow end on these discussions, so please guide us through this. When I think of automation, I'm an automotive guy, I think of, okay, we got a conveyor belt. And so the guy no longer has to move tires manually from that truck to that assembly line. So we put them right from the truck, put them on the assembly line, and nobody's doing the heavy labor. You're just supervising the conveyor line. Now that's fantastic. It's labor saving, it's faster, it's cheaper. Everything's better about that, except a conveyor belt's not particularly flexible. I can't ask the conveyor belt, hey, this afternoon after you've done moving the tires, could you help me with something else? The conveyor belt just stares at me and says, no, that says nothing. The lack of flexibility has always been the challenge with robotic stuff. My neighbor sells robotic stuff, and it's robotic arm, it's welding stuff. It just, all it does is weld. And super important, it does welding better than humans. You don't want a really good welder, you want a good robotic welding arm. And I think when we start talking about humanoids and what you guys are doing, are we talking about a lot more flexibility?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you're leaning into that part of the story here. Consider the flexibility of somebody in the environment where you have them doing different jobs every day, or perhaps different jobs throughout the day. That is the value that we want to bring with a humanoid. Part of that is based upon not only can you lift the thing, are you accurate enough to pick up the object, these sort of things, but being able to take advantage of human tools. Can you use a screw gun? Can you use a tape gun? Can you use a barcode scanner? Things like that, where if you were going to bring in somebody to do the work, these were the tools that they would be using. And so the real value of a humanoid is that because of that form factor that's built for the environment that a person normally operates in. We can switch from job to job throughout the day. We also have this incredible knowledge because of the AI that we're running, where we have knowledge of what's happening in the environment. And so if something gets delivered and the WMS is aware of it, okay, now all the robots are aware of it. Or if, hey, running out of things here, you can update on the fly. So the point that I'm trying to make is that it's not just being able to switch from job to job, it's also being able to do multiple jobs at once. So when you are, for example, picking up a part and you're doing some machine tending operation, you're also inspecting the part at the same time. And so you can do that all on the fly, which enables you to do multiple jobs at once. But then at the end of your shift, maybe you're going and you're doing something else. So that flexibility, which is built on the back of cooperative robotics, which is to say robots that can move around in environments where people are, switch what they're doing on a day-to-day basis. And that's all backed up by an AI model that has the capacity to do all this work.
Yep. Yeah, as I mentioned, I watch way too many hours of robots doing stuff. I think it started with one of those robots that looked like a horse without a head that would run around. I forgot who did that robot.
Big Dog.
Yeah.
Boston Dynamics robot.
Boston
Absolutely.
Dynamics. Yeah, I think I've watched 100 hours of that robot all by itself. Recently, I've watched robots, and who knows what I'm watching, whether it's AI or if whatever, somebody programmed a robot, like a robot gone wild, where it was like it was tied to, kind of still tethered to something, but it was flailing around, and I was like, that's not going to be a good thing. And I think when we have new technology, there's always this thought that the catastrophic problem we're going to have is soon the robots are going to overtake us. But I think if I was running a warehouse, I would be more concerned with, is it going to break something? Is it going to do something that I didn't expect? So how do we put like guardrails and some safety into this conversation?
It's a great question. It's a question I get a lot. I think probably 1 out of every 2 panels I talk on, somebody's, so Skynet, how far are we from this? I appreciate
I won't ask about Skynet now.
You're a little more grounded way to ask that, which is to say, how important is safety? Safety is paramount, no question. If you want to have robots interact with people, people need to be safe. It's very simple. And I've had the joy of watching the evolution of functional safety through when I started working in robotics. That was a very well-known thing in industrial arms. And then as I worked in mobile robots, there were not safety standards when I first started working in that environment. And now there's, in the US, you've got 1508, you've got a couple of the ISO ones that you can reference that give you a basis, a type C standard that references other standards for how to go bring something into an industrial environment that drives around people and interacts around people. Humanoids are going to leverage that same technology, but there's one big change now. You're now a biped. You have 2 legs. And like I said earlier, we're very interested in other modalities. Wheeled variants we think are best for some environments. Legged variants are best for some environments. But there is new technology out there to bring humanoids into these environments. And we're really excited. We engaged with the IEEE Humanoid Subcommittee earlier in the year and late last year to start bringing all of the regulatory bodies together to talk about what we needed to bring humanoids into not only industrial spaces, but further on more customer and public facing environments. And we're now working on the ISO committee for dynamically stable robots. That is the key difference here, is that a humanoid or even big dog, like you were talking about with 4 legs, the quadruped, has to actively be running controls so that it stays upright. And AI has done incredible things. Reinforcement learning has made it so you can control these robots incredibly well. But the regulatory piece is lagging behind a little bit. And we and other humanoid players in the space are actively working on that new set of standards so that we can guarantee that robots can work around people.
Yeah. So we've used the term humanoid robot. What's the difference between just a robot and a humanoid robot? I think we already touched on it, but please make it more clear.
I see it as that the classic form, which is 2 arms, 2 legs, is what makes something a humanoid. We talk for a whole hour about all the differences here. I have some personal beliefs of humanoid is one step removed from android. Android is something that is attempting to resemble a person, And we are a humanoid company, which means to say we want to make it very clear that what you're interacting with is a robot. I say that for one really important reason, which is we think that robots serve people, and we should never mix the idea that a robot sits on the same stature as a person. And so when you command a robot, you expect it to respond as a robot, not respond as if it's a person. And we don't have arms, we have an arm structure. We don't have skins, we have covers. So we try to shift our language here so that a humanoid is very clearly a robot and we're not approximating a person. It's one of the big differences, really, that Apptronik, how we position our systems compared to others. I've heard terms like synthetic human and things that kind of frighten me in this space. We are staying far away from that. And it's one of the reasons that I came to Apptronik is I think that this is a societal changing technology. And I see us as shepherds of a way to do that I think is more compatible with a future where we are surrounded by robots at all times.
I was laughing and I was going to joke and say, oh, Parker, you have to say that. But I'm getting older, so I've seen things in the world. And there was, you've probably seen the same thing. If you look at National Geographic, there was people who didn't want you to take their picture because some of these primitive tribes in parts of the world said, no, it's going to steal my soul. It's going to steal me. That's a part of me that you stole by taking this picture. It doesn't make any sense, especially given now we're all walking around with these mobile phones in our hands that are cameras. But we also, I remember when Amazon started, Amazon had right at the top, really big print, 1-800, whatever their Amazon phone number was. So you could call Amazon. You can still call Amazon, but we didn't feel quite safe putting our information into the internet because someone was going to steal our information. Now we feel pretty safe about that. We do it quite a bit, but it takes time. When Uber came around, it was like, I'm going to get in some stranger's car. With the cab was a stranger too, right? There's always resistance when we're doing this kind of stuff. And so you have to be very clear that we're not building androids. We're not building replacement humans. These are humanoid robots and they serve us, not the other way around for now.
Yeah. There's a lot of hype in the space, a lot of different approaches. What is a humanoid and how is it going to interact in the world? And I feel very confident that the way we're going about it is compatible, not just for logistics and industry, but also for society in general.
Yep. As an engineer, you could ask yourself, is humanoid the very best robot for this situation? So somebody say, why does it need to look like a human? Why doesn't it look like a dog? Wouldn't dog be a better solution to this? What would you say to that?
I would say that the reason that humanoids are so exciting right now is because we've lived now with automation that was built for one purpose since GM put that first robot in back in the 60s. Robots built for single purposes are very good. They're efficient, they're cost effective, they put out more parts per hour. But at the end of the day, when you want that painting robot to go help you on the assembly line, that's an insane ask. The reason
it's as bad as the conveyor. It does nothing other than the job you gave it.
And a humanoid is never, say, against a conveyor. What's going to move more boxes per hour? A humanoid or a conveyor? Conveyor is going to win every single time. We're not trying to beat a conveyor at a conveyor's job. What we're trying to do is build flexible automation that enables manufacturers to not only respond to the labor crisis they're dealing with today, but deal with just the increasing velocity that we see in the market, where customers want new things every couple of quarters. When you order a car now, you have tens of millions of different variants of that car. What trim do you want? What color do you want on the inside? What motor do you want? What tires do you want? The only way that you can do that is by having flexible lines, both on the logistics side and on the manufacturing side. And so we're not going to ever move as fast as a conveyor. But what we are going to be able to do is help that conveyor do the work early in the morning, down stack one day, and then the next day be able to help on the pack out side. And there's nothing else out there that has that level of flexibility.
Yeah, and it's going to it continues to get better. So if it learned something yesterday, unless the environment completely changes, it's going to be able to do that the next day and the next day and the next day. And I think after a while, even when the environment changes, it says, oh, we've been through environment changes before. This is the adjustments we make. And I think that's the nice thing. We all want continuous improvement in our lives and in our teams. AI actually has that continuous improvement that we are lacking.
And once one robot knows it, all of the
They all
robots.
know it. They all learned the lesson that day. So just before COVID, I was down in Ohio, not too far from me, and I was at a warehousing company. And in the morning, I toured one of their warehouses that was not very much automation, just it was lower volume, so it couldn't be. And it was interesting, nice. Then we went to lunch. Then in the afternoon, the owner took me to his other location, which was very automated. And they were doing stuff for very big companies. And they had the Amazon type look of in that warehouse, lots of conveyors, lots of automation going on. Now, if you were to come into a company like that, and let's just say they listened, and by the way, they should be, they listened, and then they said, hey, Parker, how would you help us? And I'm assuming they would like more flexibility than the conveyors and the automation they have that is single purpose. And walk us through what an engagement would look like with a company that you're working with like that.
Yeah. So when we engage with an end user, we come in with our applications and sales team and we review what the applications are that they're interested in improving or automating. We are a best friend to a mobile robot or a conveyor or a traditional robot. And so we're not necessarily talking about taking that equipment out. We're seeing how we can be compatible with it. And one thing that I'm really excited about that we do is we take these use cases that our customers are interested in and we train on them. We provide a data set that we generate ourselves. We reproduce these use cases in our environment, and we then create the basis of the model that we will use at a customer site. So we do that as part of our service here. And then when we bring a robot on site, that robot's able to function out of the box. Now, there is some more data capture that we do when we go on site, but that's the sort of rhythm that we have. So we go and we learn about all the KPIs and all the different diversity of the parts that we'll be working with. And then we try it ourselves in our facility and we train a model. It takes a certain amount of hours of data. And then we bring it on site and evaluate it. And so what that does is I think for the end user, limits their exposure because we're not talking about tearing things out. We're not talking about taking up a bunch of their time, bringing in equipment until we can show that we think we can do the job. At which point, then we come in and we start that more commercialization process. So we do self-integrate, I guess, to put it simply. We are the OEM. We handle all the front end and the back end. We'll make your dashboards and all of that. We'll around the SLA that we write, and we'll bring the equipment in and have it talk nice with others. And so we have a good fleet management system that enables us to connect with WMSs and MESs and feed all the information that's necessary to the robot so that it can do its job. And as our human robot interaction improves, we're hoping to do less of the IoT sort of integration and more of the, hey, can you help me with these boxes over here thing? But that technology is still very much still developing.
So when you say IoT, the Internet of Things, so this is where it's saying go pick, and it picks every day. So it understands I walk down this aisle, I pick, I go to the pack station, I put it in the pack station, maybe hand it off, maybe finish the packing sequence.
Exactly. So in the same way that you would have a picker get a list that they are picking, you can then send that to the robot. We can pull that live from the WMS. And so as we're going through the environment, for example, in a kitting operation or an e-commerce environment, that's exactly what we're doing, is pulling things out of bins, making sure they're the right item, doing a little bit of inspection, and then building that kit together and making it ready for pack out.
Am I right to say there's cameras within these things too, that it's recording everything?
Absolutely. So this is the joy of robotics is it is not only inputs, but outputs. And on the input side, we use a pretty wide modularity of inputs. Cameras are the foundation of it. Behind the eye structures on the robot, there are cameras there that give it a good vision so it can look around using its 3-degree of freedom neck. We have cameras that are on the hands, so we know really what it looks like when we're grabbing something. And then we have cameras all around the robot to make sure that its environment's clear. So we use a lot of different sensing so that the robot has a good understanding not only of the work that it's doing, but the environment that it exists in. because we don't expect people to put up beacons or QR codes or any of those sort of things. We work with the environment as it is, which means we need to measure the environment as it is.
Yep. So when you show up there, there's the integrations that are minimal compared to what it might have been 10 years ago.
Totally brownfield. So yeah, we come in, we'll do a mapping phase where the robot walks around, gets a sense of its environment. We commit that map to the robot and the fleet manager so that any new robot we bring into the environment leverages that same map. And then we'll do all the IT/OT connections where we're like, okay, this is where these parts are.
Say that one more time. What'd you say?
Sorry, the IT and OT. So the operational technology and the information technology, the sort of subsystems that a customer would have that houses where parts are in the environment, what's the workflows they're working with. We connect to all of those systems so that the robot kind of works fluidly in the environment.
So getting back to it, that warehouse owner, you bring him in and you say, hey, we're gonna pilot this. This is going to be the first humanoid robot. From the first time you're in their facility to the time they've got it actually being productive, how long is that?
Yeah, I would say it's comparable to traditional technologies here, which I've seen sales cycles of, depends on how big the company is, of course, because there's always that internal buyer. But I would say within probably 3/4 or so would be our target to come in, understand what the use case is, be able to build it in our own facility and test it, and then deploy it. And so we're in the process right now. We have some incredible customers that we work with that are enabling us to be development partners with them, work with them on the proof of concept and the pilot side to make sure that this technology is stout for them. They were the first in the door, and we really love working with them, particularly like groups like Mercedes, who we've done a lot of fun events with and shown how the robot does assembly of their parts. And we're going to continue focusing on those guys and every other customer we have to bring this technology out in the world.
Yeah, and my sense of it, and I think it's probably already happening, is once you get one in there and say, oh, this has actually worked out. This is working out. This is saving us this much money or making us this much money. The thought is, give me another, get me another, get me another. And I've seen this with what I'll call single-use automation in automotive. When you would look at the investment, sometimes the investment was so high for something, you just don't do it. But over time, the cost of automation came down. And also, I think when you're doing these business cases, you got to get a real sharp pencil in that, because sometimes you don't capture all of the costs of the current state and all the upside. And I think when we're talking about these things are all just basically have AI and they're capturing all sorts of information about your business, we know from our own past that at some point that's going to be very valuable to us. And it's going to help us reconfigure our warehousing space where we say, hey, based on the AI, we're going to change where the bins are, where the shelves are. Everything's going to change because we have information.
Yeah, and that's a lot of the insights that people don't expect a solution like this to bring to them, which is, hey, if we're doing inspection on the fly as we move parts, what are the defects? How many of these units have defects compared to others? As opposed to doing a count once out of every 100 times you run the process, how much more can you learn if you have a data set that says every single part that has moved through this process looks like this? And so there is the benefit of actually the labor itself that it can do, but the information, like you said, is a force multiplier. And there's very few things apart from a humanoid that has that breadth that it can touch, all these different use cases, all this different sort of information that makes the people who run these environments that much more powerful.
Yeah. I was at Manifest last year. Oh, I go every year, but I was there last year. And as you're walking around at Manifest, there's all sorts of drones flying by and robots, and they more or less contain the drones inside of fences now. But it was just incredible how quickly this hits. And I think we've heard about robots for a long time. And we heard, oh yeah, a robot's going to do that job. But it was 30 years ago we were saying that. And then when we started seeing very limited single-use robots, we were so excited. Oh, that very difficult job is now done by a robot. But again, it was a robot that did one thing, made a weld. Good, very good. Nobody's complaining. But I think what you guys are talking about is the next frontier, which is starting to mimic some of the flexibility that humans bring to your facility. And you can't easily replace a human in your facility, especially the smaller guys, unless there's somebody who has the dexterity and bipedal and all the other stuff that the importance of being a humanoid. We built our world around humans. So you can't necessarily say, I'm going to build a transformer to step in its place. We need something that looks similar to us or physical size similar to us.
Yeah, couldn't have said it better myself. The world's built for humans. So that's the form factor that we think is going to be most compatible with work going forward. And we're really excited to build robots here that serve people in those spaces. There's a lot of value, I think, in automation that is compatible with people, both from a interfaces perspective and the sort of work, taking the dull, dirty, dangerous work. That's what we want to do.
Yeah. And by the way, I also just see this industry just upgrading so quickly. And you mentioned in the dark. You could at some point say, hey, there's that warehouse that more or less runs without a human inside it. It's a crazy thought, but we're not that far away from there.
I got to say, I don't believe in the dark factory at all. I've been hearing about this theory for so long. I don't see it. Honestly, I see in the same way where AI, like you look at AI being used in programming, right? The most powerful thing is a centaur, is an AI legs and a person sitting on the top. It's the combination of the creativity of people with the incredible ability for AI to do work, right? It's when these things come together that you get the best output. I don't want dark factors.
No, when I say dark factory, I don't necessarily mean we replaced humans, but if you said, hey, look, we all went home for the night and the factory just continued to work while we went home. And look, Parker, we're always going to need humans because when you blame a robot or AI for a problem, it just sits there. It's as dumb as the conveyor. It doesn't care. You can't hurt its feelings. I can blame Parker for something, and I can praise him. I can manipulate him. That's the cool thing about humans. We're always going to need the human touch. But I say this all the time about AI. I think it will replace some areas, some work, some human work at some point. But we're always going to want to say, yes, Parker is in charge of these humanoids. This is why they work. And if something goes wrong with them, I want to go back and talk to Parker and say, hey, this is the things that are going wrong, and this is the things we want to fix for going forward.
It brings me back to the joys of seeing people who are pushing carts one day who, after installing a bunch of robots, are now telling a fleet of robots what to do. Still a person in charge. You're just doing 40 times the work.
Yeah, that's the history of humankind, the history of mankind. If you look, I've just read a book about cotton, of all things, how to make a t-shirt. And man, one time, picking cotton is the worst job in the world. And we don't have anyone picking cotton anymore. We have these massive machines that do that work. And if we didn't, we wouldn't all have these nice clothes to wear. Nobody says, oh boy, I miss the good old days when I could cut my hands picking cotton. Horrible work. And by the way, that's the same with virtually every industry that we talk about. And I think warehousing is just the next one. Warehousing was such a sleepy business. And now all of a sudden we had all the information technology, just boom. Now it's high tech on that end, but now this kind of stuff is just next level. I'm speaking to the guys from Gather AI coming up. Do you know the Gather AI guys?
Briefly, yeah.
Yeah, so I've interviewed Sandculp before, the founder over there, and they do these drones that do inventory. And they can do inventory a lot faster than humans and a lot safer. You don't want humans getting up on a ladder and going 30 feet in the air to do inventory. Anyway, enough of my blather. I'm going to summarize the best I can, and I want to get your final thoughts on the topic. So I'm talking to my friend Parker Conroy, and we're talking about how humanoid robots are shaping the future of logistics. And Parker is with Apptronik, and they are making humanoid robots. And we started with way back 50 minutes ago talking about the problem. The problem is we have warehouses that are increasingly important to our economy. E-commerce blew up during COVID, but it's never going away. We are going to continue to have warehouses, and I think the importance of warehouses is going to increase, not decrease. I think we're seeing warehouses move closer to the consumers so we can have inventory closer to consumers. But that also means we need labor to manage these warehouses. And I heard somebody say it's a lot easier to build a warehouse than to build a warehouse team. Everybody calls my friend who's a recruiter and says, I want a warehousing e-commerce expert, a manager who can manage a warehouse. He has to have 10 years experience. They're like, how? Well, I mean, there's not that many guys who were doing it 10 years ago. But how do we get a dedicated team? And I think the way we're going to get dedicated teams is twofold. I think we're going to have to, anybody who's going to work in that facility is going to say, I work there because it's a cool job. I work with all sorts of cool tech. And I think the other side of it is I work here because I'm a humanoid robot and this is what I was made to do. And I think to your point, these are general purpose robots that have the flexibility that humans have. We've always had single-use robots that do single-use things, like our example of the conveyor. The conveyor is really good at doing conveyor work, but it doesn't do anything when the conveyor work is done. We need robots who have that general purpose capability. And obviously, every one of these robots is going to have AI functionality that means it improves every single day. They're always learning. And the smart folks over at Apptronik have figured out how to make these integrations and happen very quickly. So this isn't something that is space age or 30 years from now. This is right now. Anyway, enough of my blather. Put a big old bow on this one, Parker Conroy.
Yeah, Joe, I really appreciate talking to you today. It was a lot of fun. Apptronik builds robots for humans, right? We want to have robots that are compatible with people, that are easy and fun and exciting to work with, but also that integrate really smoothly into these environments. And so our goal is to make it easy to bring these sort of solutions in and be able to smooth the path from robots in industry all the way out to robots in the home.
It's interesting. You said, hey, we want to make humanoids that are easy to work with. And I keep thinking, we don't talk about our technology as it's it. We start talking about it, it's like it's one of us. And by the way, that's happening. We're all doing it. And I don't know if you paid attention lately, there's all sorts of crazy people who are falling in love with ChatGPT or Google Gemini or whatever. And I was like, oh my God, this is a strange new world, but it's exciting also. The opportunities are limitless.
You explain why I'm enjoying working in the space that I do, because we get to encounter all of these challenges for logistics and industrial customers today, but it just speaks of the societal change that's coming when you have embodied AI.
I saw a video clip, and maybe I'll look for it and I'll put a link to it in the show notes if I can find it. But Mark Andreessen, the founder of Netscape, he's a venture capitalist now. He was talking to somebody and they're talking about some of this administration's push to bring some and reindustrialize the US. And he said, yeah, okay, we'll bring back some manufacturing. Maybe we're going to bring back some shipbuilding. We're definitely going to bring back some automotive, and we're going to make chips here. Cool. Maybe some pharma here. We already do all that. But he said the biggest industry of the future is going to be robotics. And I was like, oh, I didn't think about it till he said it. And I think he quoted Elon Musk in that. So Elon Musk, obviously in the robot business, so he wants that too. But it's fascinating. And it's funny. It's going to be a lot of jobs, but it's also going to be doing the jobs.
Exactly. And we're building robots in Texas, and it is a rising tide for all of the industries we serve. It's just it's going to be part of your environment in 10 years. And we're excited to be working on it now.
Yep. So what conferences will we see you guys at?
So we talk at quite a few. I would say probably the next time people can see me is at the IEEE Humanoids Conference. We're going to be talking.
Where's that at?
So that's in South Korea, which that humanoid conference bounces around. But we're going to be talking at one of the workshops hand in hand with Google, our partner, the DeepMind team, to talk about robot safety and a lot of the work that we're doing there. And then you can catch our CEO, Jeff Cardenas, at a variety of other conferences throughout the year. But we'll be excited to meet people at these conferences. Come talk to us. Hit us up on LinkedIn. We're always excited, both for those who are commercially interested and also who those just want to learn more about what's in the space.
I love it. I love it. So what I'll do is I'll put a link to your LinkedIn profile, link to your website, link to any other links you and your marketing team give me. And ideally, you guys have some cool robotic videos that I can watch. Just waste some more time.
Great time talking with you, Joe. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, Parker, thank you so much for taking the time. And I know it went a little over. Thank you so much for sticking with us. And thank all of you for listening to my podcast. Your support's very much appreciated. And until next time, onward and upward. You have been listening to the Logistics of Logistics podcast, where we engage with leaders in the logistics and supply chain community. If you like what you hear, please subscribe, hit the like button, and leave us a nice review on Apple or Spotify or wherever else you listen. Also, please check out our videos on YouTube and connect with us on LinkedIn. We're very big on LinkedIn. And you can also reach us on the logisticsoflogistics.com, our website.